300 people watched him destroy me. Not behind closed doors. Not over the phone. Not even in a quiet corner of the room where at least I could have kept some dignity. No, he picked up a microphone. I need you to picture this. Our engagement ceremony? The Ashford Grand Hotel. Chandeliers, champagne, 300 people in their finest clothes. All gathered because Damian Cross, one of the most powerful men in the city, had invited them to watch him make me his. I ironed my shirt 3 times that night. 3 times. Because I wanted everything to be perfect. Because for 11 months I had believed, genuinely, completely believed that I was exactly where I was supposed to be. He tapped his glass. The music stopped. Every head in that room turned toward him, and then Damian Cross looked out at everyone we had ever known and he said, calm as a man ordering coffee, "The match is not suitable for words." That was it. No explanation. No apology. No look in my direction. He set the mic down, picked up his drink, and turned back to his guests, like he had just made a quick announcement about parking validation, and I stood there in the middle of that ballroom, in my perfectly ironed shirt, holding a champagne glass I had never touched, feeling 300 pairs of eyes, slowly, carefully, turn away from him and land on me. You know what nobody tells you about public humiliation? It is not loud. It is not dramatic. It is just quiet. A specific kind of quiet that wraps around you like a second skin while everyone around you pretends they are not watching. I set my glass down, I straightened my jacket, and I walked the full length of that ballroom. Back straight, chin up, face giving absolutely nothing to any single person who watched me carry what he had just handed me in front of all of them. He did not look at me once. Not when he spoke. Not when the crowd shifted. Not when I reached the door. He did not watch me leave. And that right there told me everything. Because coldness, I could have survived. Coldness means you still feel something. But the not watching, that meant this had been decided long before tonight. Long before the guests and the champagne and the 40 times I had quietly practiced what I would say when he put the ring on my finger. He had already moved on. I was the last one to KNOW. I made it outside. Sat down on a bench in the cold November air, and I just sat there for a minute. In my best suit. In my 3 times ironed shirt. Then I took out my phone. I called my best friend Nate first. He didn't say a single word, just listened, and then quietly, tell me where you are. Then I called a moving company. First available slot, 6 in the morning, I went home. Packed everything that belonged to me. 4 boxes, 2 bags. That's what 11 months came down to. 4 boxers and 2 bags. And honestly, that number told me more about what that relationship actually was than anything Damian ever said into a microphone. I left my key on the counter. No note. Nothing to explain. He had already done all the explaining that needed to be done in front of 300 people. Into a live mic without ever once looking at me. 6A.M. The truck came 7A.M. I was gone by noon. I had a new phone number by the time the sun went down. I was 400 miles away in a city Damian Cross didn't even know I existed in, sitting on a borrowed couch, surrounded by 4 boxes and 2 bags, making myself exactly one promise. Never again. He chose a microphone. The next morning, I made sure there was nothing left to find, and I never looked back. Not even once. He ended it in front of 300 people. Eli was gone by morning without a trace. If this hit you somewhere real, you belong here. Subscribe. You do not want to miss what happens next. Chapter 2 here is what 3 years can do. It can hollow a person out, leave them going through the motions, showing up, performing, existing while something essential quietly disappears. Or it can strip everything unnecessary away and show you exactly who you always were underneath. For me, it built. Nate had a cousin in Verrall City, 400 miles from everything I had known. I took the couch offer without hesitation, because when you are starting from zero, pride is a luxury you simply cannot afford. Month 1, studio apartment, junior analyst position at Graymark Capital. End of year 1, promoted twice. I had always been good with numbers. Damian knew that. He appreciated it the way powerful men appreciate useful things as a feature. Not a person. What he never considered was what those numbers could build when they were finally working entirely for me. Year 2, I left Graymark and started something of my own. Year 3, Voss Capital, 11 employees. A track record that was starting to make serious people pay serious attention. I had built something real, something mine, and I had done it while raising 2 kids. Yeah, 2 kids. 7 weeks after I arrived in Verrall City, I found out I was pregnant. I sat in a clinic waiting room for an hour. I thought about 4 words. Not suitable. I thought about a microphone. About a man who hadn't watched me walk out of his life, and then I stopped thinking about him. And I thought about what I was going to do next. Twins, a boy and a girl, born in the middle of a July heatwave. Nate was in the corner. A midwife named Rosa told me I was the calmest first-time father she had ever seen. I wasn't calm. I was terrified. but I had spent enough time learning how to look calm from the outside. The boy, Kai, a name that doesn't ask anyone's permission. The girl, Sable, dark and bright at the same time. A name for someone who will always be more than she looks. Kai was 3 now. He had my stubbornness in his father's eyes, pale and sharp and slightly unsettling in a face that small. I had looked at those eyes every single morning for 3 years, loved them, ached over them. Both at the same time. Every day, Sable collected rocks. She had a whole system for organizing them, one only she fully understood. She asked questions I was never ready for. Then she would just wait, completely still, until I found the answer. They didn't know about their father yet. They were 3. There was still time. What I told them was simple. Our family is us. That's enough. And it was. I meant it every single time. But 300 miles away, things were very different. Nate fed me pieces of it over 3 years, carefully. The way you deliver news to someone when you're not sure, they're ready to hear it. Damien hadn't moved. On dot, within 3 months of my disappearance, he had hired investigators. Found nothing. My tracks were too clean, my new life too deliberate. He kept showing up to everything. The meetings, the deals, the parties. From the outside, completely unchanged, but the word that kept filtering back through Nate's network was always the same. He looks like a man who lost something and can't for the life of him remember where he put it. I read that. I told myself I didn't feel anything. Then I put Kai to bed. Sat with Sable while she reorganized her rocks by a system I'd given up trying to understand. And I thought about what it actually means to build a life so complete. So full, so entirely your own, that there's simply no room left for the thing you survived. I thought I was safe. I was so wrong. Thursday morning. Ordinary 14th floor of the Verrall City Commerce Tower. I was mid-presentation to the board of a logistics company called Stratford Group. I had done my homework. Their financials, their history, every board member's full background. What I hadn't known, what nobody had told me, was that Stratford Group had been quietly acquired 3 weeks earlier by Cross Holdings International. The boardroom door opened. I apologized for the interruption. My slide stayed on the screen. My pointer stayed in my hand. My face stayed exactly where I had spent 3 years training it to. Stay. Damien Cross walked in. Older, harder. The specific kind of hard that settles into a person who has been looking for something for a very long time and has almost given up believing they'll find it. His eyes moved across the room, and then they found mine for exactly 1 second. 1 single second. Every single wall I had built cracked straight down the middle. Damien spent 3 years searching. Eli spent 3 years building. Same amount of time, completely different people now. Whose 3 years hurt more? Drop Eli or Damien in the comments. Chapter 3. I finished my presentation. Every single slide, every projection, every growth chart, every carefully prepared line about synergy and long-term value. I delivered all of it to a room that had gone completely, uncomfortably silent, with my voice steady and my hands still and my eyes going exactly where they needed to go. Not to him. Not once. 19 minutes. I counted every one of them. I always count when I need something solid to hold on to. When I finished, I thanked the board, closed my portfolio, and started gathering my things. Around me the room was shifting, chairs scraping, people standing, the normal sounds of a meeting wrapping up. Damien stayed by the door, hands in his pockets, patient. Still, the posture of a man who has made a decision to wait and genuinely means it. I snapped my portfolio shut. Mr. Voss. 3 years. Same voice. I turned around. This was the first time I had looked directly at him since I walked out of the Ashford Grand Hotel ballroom. And here is what I noticed. He looked diminished. Not physically. He was still every inch the powerful, expensive, put-together man the world knew him as. But something behind his eyes had gone quiet, gray, like a fire that had been burning for a long time and was finally, seriously, running out of fuel. Damien, I said. Just his name, nothing attached to it. You built Voss Capital, he said. Yes. In 3 years. Yes. The last board members filed out. The door clicked shut. Just the two of us. I looked for you, he said. I know. I made sure you couldn't find me. Why? I looked at him for a long moment, because I was done. I said, and I needed you to actually understand that I was done. I was never done, he said quietly. That, I said, is not something I asked for your opinion on. Silence stretched between us. The city hummed outside, completely indifferent. I made a mistake, he said. Yes. What I did that night was planned, I said. You didn't stumble into that microphone, Damien. You chose that venue. You set that date. You invited 300 people and you stood up in front of all of them. That is not a mistake. That is a choice. Nothing to say to that. Because it was true and he knew it. Why that way? First time I had ever asked. Out of every possible way, why a microphone? Why 300 people? He was quiet for a long time. Because I was scared, he said finally, of what you meant to me. If I did it quietly, privately, I was afraid I'd change my mind. So I made it public, made it impossible to take back. I just stared at him. You used 300 people, I said slowly, as insurance. So you couldn't talk yourself out of losing me. He didn't answer. You called me not suitable 3 years ago, I said. Just now you called it a situation you needed to control. Damien, do you understand those are the exact same word? That I have been a word to you this entire time. He flinched. Good. I have a meeting, I said. My assistant will send your board the partnership terms by end of week. I headed for the door. Eli, I stopped. Didn't turn around. I'm sorry, he said. Not because of the acquisition. Not because I need something from you. Because what I did was wrong. You deserved a private conversation. You deserved honesty. You deserved at the absolute minimum to not find out in front of 300 people. He paused. You deserved better than a microphone. I stood very still. The exact right words. After 3 years, he had finally found the exact right words. Terms by end of week. I said dot, and I walked out. Elevator doors closed, alone. I stood straight while my hands shook. The same shaking from that November bench, that iron shirt, those 4 words, he was sorry. He meant it. I could tell, and I was absolutely furious about it because sorry doesn't give back for boxes and 2 bags. Sorry doesn't give back 3 years of looking into Kai's eyes every single morning. Sorry doesn't give back 1 bedtime story, 1 Saturday walk. 1 single day of building a life from nothing in a city he couldn't find me in. But sorry, I was realizing, is also where things start. And I had built an entire empire out of starting over, Eli said. You used 300 people as insurance, so you couldn't talk yourself out of losing me. Damien said, you deserved better than a microphone. Has he earned the right to say sorry? Drop yes or not yet in the comments. Chapter 4. He showed up at my office the next morning. No assistant. No appointment. No heads up of any kind. 8:52 a.m. My receptionist's voice on the intercom? Impressively neutral. Mr. Voss. There's a Damien cross in the lobby. Says it's personal. 4 seconds of silence. Send him up. He looked around my office the way people look at things that genuinely surprise them, trying to take it all in. Without making it obvious that they're taking it all in. The view, the clean lines, the wall of framed market projections, the orange marker sun that Kai had drawn on Bring Your Kids to Work Day, which I had framed and hung on the wall because it made me smile every single morning without fail. And on my desk, a photograph. Small frame. Simple, Kai and Sable. 6 months ago, Sable holding a rock she'd decided was extremely significant. Kai grinning wide, completely unguarded. Totally himself with his father's eyes. Catching the afternoon light, his father's eyes, Damien couldn't see it clearly from where he stood, but I knew it was there. The way you always know exactly where the thing is that has the power to change everything. Sit down, I said. He sat. I stayed standing. We went through the basics, the boardroom, the investigators. 2 years have found nothing, and then his eyes moved, slowly. Across the desk to the photograph, I watched him see it. I watched the exact moment his brain started running the numbers, the hair, the face, the age, the eyes. His eyes, I watched him get all the way to the edge of the answer and then just stop, because saying it out loud made it real. Eli, he said carefully, how long have you been in Varel City? 3 years. Long pause. Are those your children? Yes. How old are they? 3. 11 seconds. I counted Eli. His voice came out hollowed, like something had been removed from the very center of it. Are they? Yes, I said. Simple.com. True. He pressed his hand flat against his chest, sat completely still, like a man who has been running hard for a very long time and has just, without warning, stopped. I found out 7 weeks after I left. I said, I didn't know at the ceremony. Why didn't you tell Damien? I held his gaze. You had just called me not suitable into a microphone in front of 300 people. You didn't even look at the door when I walked out. In what version of that night do I come back to you with this? No answer, because there wasn't one. A boy and a girl, I said. Kai and Sable. They're healthy. They're brilliant. Kai never stops talking, and he has your eyes. I paused. I've looked at those eyes every single morning for 3 years. Something in his face broke open. Not loud, not dramatic, just quiet. The way a foundation shifts before a building settles into something new. I want to meet them, he said. I know, Eli, that's not a no, I said. It's also not a yes. It's, I need to think about what's right for them. Not you, not me. 4 2-3-year-olds, whose entire world is built around the fact that it's just us. Yes, he said immediately. What do they know about their father? Nothing yet. They're 3. I paused. Sable will ask first. She always asks first. He nodded slowly. What do I do? He asked, quiet. stripped completely down. There's a park, I said finally. Meridian Park, East Side. Saturday mornings, 8 o'clock. We do the long path around the lake. He went completely still. That is not an invitation, I said clearly. That is information. What you do with it is entirely up to you. He stood, moved toward the door, stopped, didn't turn around. Eli. His voice was low. What are their names again? Kai, I said, and Sable, a long pause. Those are really good names, he said, and he walked out. I sat at my desk, looked at the photograph. Kai's eyes, Sable's rock. Saturday was 4 days away. I didn't know if he would come, and I genuinely had no idea which answer I was hoping for. He stopped at the door just to hear their names. One more time, what do you think Sable's first question will be when she finally meets him? Chapter 5. He was there at 7:54 minutes early, standing by the lake with his hands in his jacket pockets, staring at the water like a man who has rehearsed something 100 times and just realized the rehearsal was never going to be enough. I had told the kids we might run into someone new today. Kai immediately wanted to know if the someone could run fast. Sable went quiet, which always meant she was already thinking, is he nice? She asked on the way to the park. I think so, I said. He's trying to be. She nodded slowly, like that was a real and sufficient answer. Kai spotted him. First, obviously, Papa. That man is standing by our lake. He might walk with us today. Kai assessed the situation with the gravity of someone making a very important executive decision. Then he nodded. Official. Cleared. Sable went still beside me, which meant she was paying complete attention to everything. Damien saw us from about 30 feet out. I watched his face. He looked at Kai first, my jaw, his eyes pale and sharp and entirely his looking back at him from a face that small. On a morning he had almost not been alive for, his throat moved. Then he looked at Sable. Sable was already looking at him. The way she looked at everything she wasn't sure about yet. Completely still, completely focused, completely without performance. He crouched down when we reached him. No rush. Like he knew this wasn't something you hurried. Hi, he said. Kai looked at him. Can you run fast? Something moved across Damien's face. Not quite a smile. Something more undone than a smile. I used to, he said. I'm a little out of practice. Papa can run fast, Kai told him. But he says the point isn't the running. The point, I said, is the walk. He always says that, Kai told Damien seriously. Like he was passing along classified information to a new ally. Damien glanced up at me. His eyes were very bright. I looked at the path. Sable hadn't spoken yet. She stepped forward, deliberate and unhurried, and held up the rock she'd been carrying since we left the apartment. This one is igneous, she said. That means it came from something that was on fire a really long time ago. Damien looked at that rock with his full attention, the way she needed it looked at. Can I hold it? She considered. Stood completely still. Measuring. Then she placed it in his hand, with the careful seriousness of someone handing over something genuinely irreplaceable. He held it gently, turned it over. Actually looked at it. You can see where it cooled, he said quietly. Right here. These lines. Sable leaned in close. Yeah, she said. That's the best part. They walked ahead of me after that, Sable explaining. Damien, listening like it was the most important conversation he'd had in years. Because for him, I think it genuinely was. Kai ran circles around both of them, providing a full running commentary on his own athletic performance. I walked behind and I thought about what it feels like to watch something begin that you weren't sure you were ready to believe in an hour later, at the far bend of the lake. Kai stopped walking, turned around, looked up at Damien with his father's eyes in his 3-year-old face. Did you do something bad to my papa? The whole path went quiet. Damien looked at me. I gave him nothing. This was completely his. He looked back at Kai. Yeah, he said. I did. Kai's brow came together, processing. Did you say sorry? I tried to. I'm not sure I said it right yet. Kai thought about this for a real moment. Then he turned to me. Papa, did he say sorry, right? I looked at my son, Damien's eyes and my child's face, waiting with the patience of someone who understood at 3 years old that some questions actually matter. Then I looked at Damien. No performance, no managing, just a man standing on a Saturday morning path, holding a rock a little girl had decided to trust him with, waiting for the only answer that had mattered for 3 years. He's still learning how, I said. Kai nodded. Fully settled. That's okay, he said. Papa says sorry, gets better with practice. And he grabbed Damien's hand. No ceremony, no hesitation, the way kids do things that quietly break adults completely open, and just started pulling him toward the parking lot. Sable slipped her hand into mine. We walked, all 4 of us. Saturday morning, long path around the lake. We weren't a family yet. We were the beginning of a decision, fragile, honest, built on the understanding that some things don't get fixed, They get rebuilt into something different. But as Kai dragged his father forward, and Sable walked quietly beside me, and Damien looked back at me over their heads with an expression that had no words left in it, I thought maybe different is exactly what we needed. What none of us knew yet was that Cross Holdings board had been asking questions for 3 years. Questions about the person who disappeared the morning after the ceremony. Questions about what Damien had done and why. Questions that were about to find their way to a park in Varel City on a very ordinary Saturday morning. And 2 kids with a very complicated inheritance were about to change the shape of an empire. Kai said, "Sorry, gets better with practice." A 3-year-old just said what every single one of us needed to hear. Was Eli right to open that door? Would you watch part 2? The board finds the twins? Drop YES in the comments if you want part 2.